Donald Trump has officially reached his last resort. And last Thursday, December 23rd, he appealed his lawsuit to the United States Supreme Court, begging them, please protect my so-called executive privilege and do not let the January 6th committee get a hold of my communications from that day. Now, as we discussed earlier in the month, the U.S. District Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. unanimously ruled that Trump, you cannot invoke executive privilege when the sitting president has already said executive privilege for these documents does not exist. So now the question lay before the feet of the 9 Supreme Court justices, 6 of whom are uber conservatives, 3 of whom were appointed by Donald Trump himself. Several ways this could play out. First one, and the worst possible outcome, the Supreme Court says, Trump, you're right. You have executive privilege. The committee cannot get their hands on your communications. Ball game. And that essentially would be game over for that particular avenue. Donald Trump would have prevailed. And of course, the committee would be left without those documents. How much that hinders their work? Well, we won't really know. Because even though we can't get his specific communications, we can get anything he sent to anyone else. So, not exactly like they're going to be playing with nothing. But there's the ramifications of that, and this is why I believe this Supreme Court, as conservative as it is, likely will not go this route. Because this means that anyone who has ever served or will ever serve as President of the United States gets to continue to claim executive privilege for all of eternity. Well, at least for their lifetimes. Which means Bill Clinton could come out and say, well, hold up now. I want executive privilege over these things. George W. Bush, hell, Jimmy Carter could come out and say, all right, whoa, I didn't know we were playing this game. Let's go ahead and executive privilege a lot of things. Supreme Court's not going to do that. And of course, any future president would be able to do that once they leave office, which would, of course, undermine the authority of the sitting president of the United States, who, as these conservative justices know, is not always going to be a Democrat. Do they really want to hamstring a future Republican president? Who might want to launch an investigation into a former Democratic president? I don't think so. So I don't think the first possibility is the most likely. Second possibility, the Supreme Court says, sorry, bud, you don't have executive privilege, you got to turn your documents over. At which point emerge 2 different possibilities. The first possibility is Trump says, well, darn it, I lost. Because we know how much he loves to say that. And he says, all right, committee, here you go. The odds of that happening, slim to none. Even if the Supreme Court tells him he has to, I seriously doubt the guy's ever going to voluntarily hand his stuff over to the committee. And that leads us to possibility number 2, which of course from that offshoot 2 more possibilities. So I hope you're paying attention to the dichotomous key here. So the first possibility over here is that Trump says, no, I'm not going to turn these over. Actually, that's the main possibility. Then the offshoots come from there. Sorry. My own chart in my head is getting messed up. But anyway, second possibility, of course, he says, no, I'm not turning it over. So then you have the other 2 possibilities. Committee says, okay, we're going to vote to hold you in contempt. And then Trump either says, all right, look, I know I can't fight the contempt. Here's the documents. Or 2, Trump says, bring it on. The House votes, like they have for several other individuals, to hold him in contempt of Congress. Then the Department of Justice arrests him. And because he would have already lost at the United States Supreme Court, the authorities would likely have legal clearance to go in, seize the documents themselves, and turn them over to the committee. And of course, Donald Trump would, stand trial for contempt of Congress. So there's only one of those very many possibilities that works well for Donald Trump. And of course, by working well for Donald Trump, that's actually a boon to future Democratic presidents who want to engage in corruption and don't want to have to answer for it in the future. So, Democrats have literally everything to gain from every possible scenario here, while Republicans, no matter which way you slice it, are going to be the big losers. One of today's video sponsors is Munk Pack Keto Nut and Seed Bars. Healthy snacks have a bad reputation, and let's be honest, most don't taste very good. They don't fill you up, and they certainly don't satisfy any of your cravings. Munk Pack makes snacks that taste like our favorite sugary treats, but with 1 gram of sugar or less. Munk Pack Keto Nut and Seed Bars contain 1 gram of sugar or less, 2 to 3 grams of net carbs, and they're only 150 calories. They're great for anyone following a keto lifestyle and the perfect snack for anyone who's trying to eat better or cut back on sugar and carbs without sacrificing taste. Munk Pack Keto Nut and Seed Bars have a perfect balance of sweet and salty, a crunch from whole nuts and seeds, but still manage to be soft and chewy. They come in delicious flavors like sea salt dark chocolate, caramel sea salt, and peanut butter dark chocolate. They're perfect for a quick snack to satisfy your sweet tooth without any guilt, and you can enjoy Munk Pack Keto Nut and Seed Bars as a quick breakfast while running errands or after a workout. In addition to being keto-friendly, the bars are also gluten-free, plant-based, non-GMO with no soy, trans fats, sugar alcohols, or artificial colors. So try it for yourself and you'll see, and we have a special deal for our Ring of Fire viewers. Get 20% off your first purchase of any Munk Pack product by visiting munkpack.com and entering our code ROF at checkout. And Munk Pack is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll exchange the product or refund your money, whichever you prefer. To get started, just go to munkpack.com. That's munkpack.com. Select any product, then enter code ROF at checkout to save 20% off your purchase.